Their football team is their priority. The money that comes to them is their priority. They don't care about the victims.
He actually picked me up, put me over his shoulder, walked up the flight of stairs. I knew that when he kicked my dog down the stairs, this is gonna get violent.
I called the academic department and I spoke to a lady, and I specifically said my daughter was raped. She told me, if a plane falls on your daughter, there's nothing we can do to help you.
As a Christian person, you strive to be the light on the hill that people look to as kind of a guidepost. And in my mind, as a Christian university, that should be what you strive to be too.
This woman, whom we'll call Sarah, was a member of Baylor's equestrian team. She briefly dated future Baylor football player Tevin Elliot while he was a recruit, but broke up with him before he began his first semester.
So I said, that's where this is. We can be friends. And I was very straightforward on that point.
In the fall of 2009, Elliot arrived at Baylor and the two stayed friends. On Halloween, after a night out at a local bar with her teammates, Sarah returned home and passed out.
So the next morning I woke up, I don't remember what time it was maybe 9 o'clock. And I woke up completely naked. There was like residue on me, like I'd had sex, and that was part of what was really bothering me.
Sarah's roommate told her Elliot had been in their apartment that night. Then Sarah called Elliot, who she said told her that they had had sex.
At that time, I remembered that I was on my period, and I thought, I know I put a tampon on before I went out. So I went to check in the bathroom, and my tampon was shoved really high up inside of me. And I think that was when I realized that it couldn't have been consensual.
Sarah decided not to report the incident to police.
I convinced myself it was an accident. He didn't mean to do it. He didn't know what he was doing. And, he could go on to play football.
At that time, Baylor football under head coach Art Briles was emerging as a national power, while Elliot was making a name for himself as a starting defensive end. The Bears finished in the top 25 in 2011, the first time since the mid-'80s. March 27, 2012, a Baylor student athlete we'll call Kim says she didn't know Elliot personally when she needed a favor toward the end of her senior year.
I needed someone to help me move a desk up a flight of stairs. So I kind of asked around. They were like, I think Tevin Elliott's still there. Why don't you ask him? And then when I asked him and he said yes, I was like, awesome, great. Chivalry is not dead.
After a few moments of small talk, Kim says Elliot began playfully touching her.
Then after he kind of started progressively teasing me, and not teasing, but poking, like kind of trying to wrestle with me a little bit. And I'm like, dude, not cool, back off, back off. And then it got to a point where he was like full out trying to wrestle with me. And I got really nervous and things started becoming real.
Then Kim says Elliot hoisted her over his shoulder and carried her upstairs.
He put me face down into the bed and pulled down my pants and proceeded to rape me. And I do remember picking my head up and saying no. And just like looking at him, and he fed off of that energy, and to him that was yes. He liked that energy.
Kim says she refused to leave her apartment for a few days, but eventually filed a report with the Waco Police Department. Then she asked for help from Baylor and was directed to Bethany McCraw, the chief judicial officer.
She essentially said, why are you here? And I said, well, Tevin Elliot, I don't know if you know Tevin Elliot. She's like, oh yeah. And I go, he raped me. And she goes, yeah, you're the sixth girl to come in and tell me this. My mom was with me, and we essentially asked, well, why are there six? Does the football team know about this? Does Art Briles know about this? And she said, yes, they know about it, but it turns into a he said, she said. So there's got to be an actual court decision in order to act on it in any sort of way.
Federal law requires universities to thoroughly investigate all allegations of sexual assault. However, Outside the Lines has found no evidence Baylor did that. Kim also says McCraw dissuaded her from pressing charges or requesting a restraining order. She was, however, offered help with finals.
I'm like, okay, well, I guess my only option is to graduate and get the heck out of here. Hey, that's it. She was like, okay, well, we'll make that happen. Like, she run along.
Outside the Lines asked McCraw about Kim's account of their conversation. McCraw said that it was not accurate, but refused to comment further. 2 weeks after Kim reported her rape, a freshman we'll call Tonya told police she was raped by Elliot after he got her alone outside of a party shortly after they'd first met.
He literally has picked me up, and my mind could not process the fact that I was being carried by someone who I told explicitly, I do not want you to pick me up, like, put me down.
Tonya says she was a virgin when Elliot raped her. She reported it to police and then sought counseling from Baylor Student Health Services.
They didn't just not respond, they responded by turning me away and telling me that it was not possible for me to receive help from them. As soon as this happened, oh, you might tarnish the reputation of one of our football players and, like, worse, the program. We're just going to completely deny you any sort of help.
Federal law also mandates universities provide counseling and academic support to students who allege they're victims of a sexual assault. Tonya says after the rape, she had trouble focusing on her classwork and her grades plummeted. She eventually lost her academic scholarship and soon left school altogether.
This is not where I dropped her off. When we dropped her off, there was love and compassion and unity and safety. And there was nothing like that from this university.
2 weeks after Tonya reported Elliot to police, on April 27, 2012, Coach Art Briles suspended him in connection with Tonya's allegation. He'd eventually be expelled, and his arrest 3 days later landed in the local news. The story reached Sarah, and she decided to finally report Elliot to Waco police 2.5 years after she says she was assaulted.
I ended up calling my mom. That was the first time that I told her about what happened. She said, when you went through that, you were alone. Right now, she's alone. And as far as she knows, she's the only one. And so she said, you have an opportunity to make her not alone.
Elliot's trial revealed 2 more sexual assault allegations while he was a student at Baylor, including an accusation in 2011 from a student from a nearby community college who said he held her against her will and touched her inappropriately. For this, he was convicted of misdemeanor assault.
Former Baylor football player found guilty of 2 counts of sexual assault.
In January 2014, Elliot was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his attack on Tonya. Outside the Lines went to the prison, and Elliot agreed to speak on camera.
You started in the fall of 2009, and there was someone who complained that you had assaulted her. She says that you had sex with her without her consent. What's your response to that?
I mean, that's untrue.
March of 2012, another woman says you forced her to have sex in her condo.
No, that's a lot. I can't really go into detail with that, you know what I'm saying? That's ridiculous, you know. I would never do no stuff like that, and like I said, I can't go into detail with that neither.
And then the last one that the trial is actually focused on, and you know, her story, obviously, she says you picked her up at a party and had sex with her without her consent.
I can't really talk about that, go into detail about it. I really wish I could, you know, and tell you, give you the real facts, the true story, what really happened, but, you know, I can't.
How could 5 women who really didn't know each other before coming forward with this all say that you raped them or attempted to rape them and be lying?
College athletes go through this all the time, not just myself. I'm talking about Jameis Winston, Case McCoy. It's so many athletes go through this every year because we're the big athletes and we got to, you know, we sit on a pedestal and they feel like, you know, try to make us look bad. But at the end of the day, you know, we could be innocent. It's like we guilty to proving innocent.
Elliot says the first time anyone at Baylor approached him about the allegations was in April 2012, after Tonya came forward. But sources told Outside the Lines Baylor's Judicial Affairs Department was aware in November 2011 of Elliot's misdemeanor assault conviction involving the community college student. Then, just 5 months after Elliot's felony conviction, there would be another Baylor football player indicted for sexual assault.
Was it rape or consensual sex? That's the key question in the trial of a Baylor football player charged with sexual assault.
Samuel Ukuwachu was on trial for the alleged rape of a female Baylor soccer player.
I heard it on the news. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, they didn't take it seriously. It's like they didn't take the Tevin thing seriously. Like, we really didn't. What, did we not cry out enough for something to be done?
In the case of Ukuwachu, Baylor University did an investigation that cleared him of any wrongdoing.
In a word, how would you characterize their investigation?
I wouldn't call it an investigation.
McLennan County Assistant District Attorney Hillary Laborde says Baylor officials ignored sources and faulted the victim for having a prior relationship with Ukuwachu.
I feel like the woman doing the investigation had an almost like 1940s idea of how women should behave. They didn't have someone that seemed to know anything about how college rape occurs. If they're sitting around and waiting for a victim who has been pulled off the jogging path and raped by a stranger wearing a trench coat, they're going to be waiting for a long time.
Baylor declined to make head coach Art Briles and university president Ken Starr available, but instead provided Patty Crawford, who was hired as the school's first ever Title IX coordinator in November of 2014, a position the U.S. Department of Education has requested of universities since 2011.
We have encouraged our board of directors, our board of regents, to hire an external review to come forward and to look at our past processes, because we do want to be our best, and we're always wanting to be an improvement from yesterday. And to me, that just demonstrates that Baylor really does care.
Following the indictment, Ukuwachu remained on the team for 1 year and graduated from Baylor. In August of 2015, Ukuwachu was found guilty of sexual assault. Prompted by Ukuwachu's conviction, Sarah, Tevin Elliott's first known victim, sent an email November 3rd, 2015 to Baylor President Ken Starr, copying others, including Athletic Director Ian McCaw and Coach Briles.
I didn't hear from the coach. I didn't hear from the president. I didn't hear from the athletic director.
And what was your subject line?
I was raped at Baylor. What does it take for universities to start taking a stand and saying that we can win football games without these predators? How many women do you have to destroy for people to finally stand up and say, like, we're demanding something better?